imagine this hypothetical situation. Someone who has kids at home, married with children, comes home after a long day and does the normal evening routine, cooks and everything, and kids kind of eat the food, complain probably, and it's that whole situation. And then it's kind of time for bed and bath time and all that, and you do all the things you need to do, and you're so tired, you're overwhelmed, you wish you were in bed 30 minutes ago, and then you notice that also the house is a wreck, and there's dishes in the sink, toys are all over the floor, the house is just dirty. And instead of complaining because you want to be the bigger person and you want to be the champion of the home and you guys got to keep things going, you start picking up, but you start that dialogue in your head. And you start wondering if anybody actually appreciates all that you do for them. And you start to kind of wonder if they even notice that you're doing it. And so as you're picking up the toys, you're kind of throwing the toy a little bit louder into the box. Maybe the kids will notice and maybe they'll come and help. You start doing the dishes and you just kind of clang the dishes a little louder. Maybe the spouse will notice, maybe they'll come help. You kind of sigh, you huff a little bit louder. Maybe somebody will just have a little compassion on just how tired you are. But of course, no one notices, no one cares. The night just continues. You go to bed, you do it all over again the next day, the next night, and the resentment starts to build. And you silently fume. You never complain, but you silently fume until one day you just kind of pop. Or another example, for those of you maybe in the workplace, this hypothetical example of, that person that really works hard. You just work so hard and you do a lot behind the scenes. You pick up the slack of other people because you're that kind of person. You really want to be that team player. But of course, there's that other team player, or at least another player on the team, who is so social, gregarious, and charming, but doesn't seem to quite work as hard as you. Takes shortcuts, shows up late, misses deadlines. And so you have to pick up the slack, and you're not going to complain. You're not going to say anything because you want to be that noble hard worker. You want to do what's right, and you want to be virtuous. But inside, it's eating you alive. And you just notice, you judge, you tear them apart in your head, and that conversation, that inner dialogue continues to go on. Until one day, someone random just mentions the name of that other coworker, and you just let it all out. You just let it all out, all the honest, terrible thoughts inside of your head about this person, and it's just word vomit. And you start to think to yourself, wow, I didn't realize all that was in there. It's amazing how easy it is for us. These are just hypothetical examples, of course. But it's amazing how easy it is for us to let things build, to even for us to kind of deceive ourselves. Like we, won't even admit to ourselves that we're upset with somebody or that there's conflict. But it just kind of starts to build, and over time it gets worse and worse until all of a sudden it explodes upon somebody that wasn't even ready for that. And I'll just point that out because I think that's one perspective that we can look at this very famous and popular passage about Martha and Mary. Of course, there's a lot that's relatable about this. The two sisters, one is serving, the other's at the Lord's feet, and all that. But what about the conflict? What about the conflict resolution that's being avoided? How different would this story be of Martha and Mary if Martha would have just simply asked Mary for help? But it doesn't seem like she did. It seems like Martha was just working really hard and hoping that Mary would notice and read her mind and take initiative to help out. But she didn't. But what if Martha would have said, hey, sis, I could really use a hand. There's a lot of people here right now. And who knows how Mary would have responded? We don't know because Martha didn't ask. Instead, Martha silently fumed, built up the resentment, and got just angry enough to finally let it all out to Jesus and say, Lord, do you not even care? And then she's ready to accuse. Look at her. She has not done anything. She's left me by myself to do all the serving. Tell her to help me. Notice how Martha is now accusing Mary and fussing at Jesus. But Jesus is so gentle and patient with us, and even whenever we're imperfect like this, and he just shines a light on her heart and says, Martha, you are anxious and worried about a lot. Who in your life are you silently fuming about? It might be your spouse or your kids, and it might be coworkers, it might be good friends. Because it's probably that you're fuming about something really small and insignificant. It's probably not even a really big deal, which is probably why you didn't even bring it up. But inside of your heart, it's getting bigger and bigger as you let that inner dialogue get worse and worse. What if we were willing to have courageous conversations on the front end before they became so big and scary? Conflict resolution is scary and difficult, probably because we've tried it once and we probably failed and it was probably uncomfortable. And we don't want to make things worse, and so we tend to try to bottle things up often. But what if instead we sought to resolve these conflicts? I'd like to give a couple tips for what they're worth. I'm sure there's lots of tips for conflict resolution, but here's a few. One is, what if we chose, before we sought to resolve conflict, what if we chose to assume the best in the other person? Not to accuse them of the laundry list of things that we've noticed that's wrong, but instead assume to the best in them. What if we chose to assume the best? And what if we chose to assume that we too probably have some imperfections to bring to this table? The next thing is, what if we spoke directly but also kindly to the person? You know, most of us would probably prefer to be passive-aggressive, hoping that they'll get the hint, or, roll our eyes, or be kind of sarcastic, or short, or curt in our words, or in our emails, in our text messages. But instead of that, what if instead we, at a time that was calm and safe, we were just very direct, simple with our directness, but also kind with our directness? You see, some other of us maybe are too direct and too harsh, and we forget to be compassionate. So we got to bring in both directness and kindness. It's another way of saying truth and charity. But what if we did that? The third is, what if we chose ahead of time that we're going to forgive, no matter what this conversation turns into, no matter how difficult it becomes? What if we chose ahead of time, we're going to forgive and we're going to find a reason to apologize? Now, there's a difference between saying, I'm sorry that you are upset. That's not a real apology. We got to say, I'm sorry for something I did. Whenever we say, I'm sorry that you, red flag. It's not a real apology. Or also, I'm sorry if, not if. It's not I'm sorry if, it's I'm sorry that I did something. That's how you apologize. But what if we did that and forgave? You see, these small little tools could probably go a long way in some conflict resolution, especially in small matters before they become big matters, because these people that you're upset with are probably people that you love, and probably people that you don't want to have a big old riff that builds over time. So we're going to assume the best, not accuse. We're going to speak directly and kindly, and we're going to forgive and apologize. Amen. Hey guys, thanks again for listening to our podcast. Don't forget to click the links below to learn more about our mission. Thanks.